DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. 16 more hostages freed from Gaza as part of Israel-Hamas truce. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Israel for talks on truce and aid shipments. UN Climate Change Conference COP28 opens today in Dubai with a resounding call to accelerate global climate action. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend the summit. Climate priorities to dominate the agenda. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says G20 is today more inclusive, ambitious and action-oriented as India hands over the G20 presidency to Brazil. India's southern state of Telangana goes to assembly polls today. 32.6 million people to decide the fate of 2,290 candidates for 119 seats. And in sports, Manchester United on the brink of Champions League exit. Arsenal and PSV into last 16. Real Madrid thrash Napoli 4-2. 16 people who were being held hostage in Gaza were handed over to the Israeli officials on Wednesday, the second and last day of an extended truce in the Gaza conflict between Israel and the Palestinian group Hamas. In a repeat of scenes over the past 6 days during a humanitarian pause in hostilities, the civilians were released to International Committee of the Red Cross and driven in vehicles to Israel. Spokesperson for Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said under the terms of the Qatari mediated deal, 30 Palestinians, 16 minors and 14 women will be released in exchange. 2 Russian citizens and 4 Thai citizens were released outside the framework of the agreement, while the 10 Israeli citizens freed included 5 dual citizens. They were a Dutch dual citizen who is also a minor, 3 German dual citizens and 1 US dual citizen. The hostages freed were among some 240 people seized by Hamas gunmen during a rampage into southern Israel on October 7th, in which Israel says 1,200 people were killed. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel will continue fighting Hamas in Gaza until the end. Israel and Hamas were considering the parameters of a potential new phase of the Gaza truce deal that includes Hamas releasing hostages on Wednesday. Qatari negotiators had met Hamas officials to gauge their willingness to agree to the new parameters. The outcome of the discussion between Qatar and Hamas was unclear. Israel has sworn to annihilate Hamas, which rules Gaza.
At the start of the war, I set 3 goals. Eliminating Hamas, returning all our hostages, and ensuring that Gaza will never again go back to being a threat to Israel. These 3 goals still stand. There is no situation in which we do not go back to fighting until the end. This is my policy. The entire cabinet is behind it. The entire government is behind it. The soldiers are behind it. The people are behind it. This is exactly what we will do.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attended a ceremony for a new Israeli village that will be built near Gaza, dedicated to the memory of a local council leader who was killed in the Hamas attack. Netanyahu addressed the ceremony for the new village, named after Ophir Leibestian, who served as head of the regional council and died in Kibbutz Kfar Aza following a deadly infiltration by Hamas gunmen. The community, which was decided on by the government last February, was initially called Hanun, but its name was changed in the wake of the October attack.
We will destroy Hamas, bring back all the hostages, and make sure that Gaza is no longer a threat. We will rebuild all the communities. We will build Ophir and many more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv on Thursday, where he was expected to meet with Israeli leaders to discuss extending Israel's temporary truce with Hamas and boosting humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Blinken, making his third trip to the region since the deadly October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, is also expected to visit the occupied West Bank, where he will likely meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Washington's top diplomat is also expected to discuss Israel's looming offensive into southern Gaza. The U.S. is asking Israel to take greater care to protect Palestinian civilians and limit damage to infrastructure in any offensive in the south. In a United Nations press conference on Wednesday, Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan and Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stressed on the need for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan said that a truce was not enough and that a ceasefire was needed.
So we are here to make a clear statement that a truce is not enough. What is needed is a ceasefire. What is needed is a credible peace, and a peace that lasts and that allows the Palestinians and the Israelis to live side by side in two states. Anything else will result in continuing crisis in the region.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan also called for an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian assistance.
We are, as a group, is working very hard to make sure that the international community lives up to its responsibilities, both legal and moral. I think this is very important because in the absence of moral compass, we would lose our way as humanity. So therefore, as international community, we need to do our best to address this issue at every level, at humanitarian level, at political level, and we need immediate ceasefire, we need immediate humanitarian assistance. At the same time, we need to start immediately to address the root cause of the problem, which is two-state solution.
U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, told reporters that the United States is hopeful that the truce in Gaza can be extended.
We're hopeful that the truce can be extended, but as I said in the Council, this is all in the hands of Hamas. The Israelis have said if they continue to release 10 hostages a day, they will extend by a day. So it truly is, in their hands, but I do think there is a potential for that, and we're actively working to extend the deal. We're continuing to work to get American hostages and all hostages released from the clutches of Hamas and the other groups. 2 Americans have already been released, and we're hoping to get all of the hostages, all of the Americans out.
U.S. President Joe Biden said that Israeli-American hostage Liat Benin has been released by the Hamas. Benin, who was abducted during the October 7th attack, Biden said had now crossed the Gaza border and was safe in Egypt. Benin was among the 16 hostages released on Wednesday by Hamas on the final day of a 2-day extension of Gaza truce.
Got some very good news to report. Liat Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father. They're very appreciative, and things are moving well. She'll soon be home with her 3 children. That's all I have to say for right now.
Family of 13-year-old Gali Tashkenchki took a sigh of relief on Wednesday as she was freed from the captivity of Hamas under the Israel-Hamas truce deal. As per Tashkenchki's grandmother, she was able to breathe again since the child was released. The truce deal was supposed to end on Monday, but 16 people were handed over to Israeli officials on Wednesday, the second and last day of the extended truce.
I have to start to learn from the beginning how to breathe, because I really don't remember how to do it. And I called a friend the moment Gali came down, and I told her that I don't remember how to breathe. She basically told me what to do. Block the nose, bring in air to the stomach and slowly release it. Just like that, honestly.
All right, that was about Israel-Hamas conflict. Let's get you now updates on the COP28 summit. The UAE is hosting the COP28 summit from November 30th. World leaders will discuss climate priorities. India is an influential voice of the developing countries at the annual COP event. Tapas Bhattacharya reports from Dubai.
In a pivotal moment for global climate action, the spotlight turns to the upcoming COP28 summit hosted by the United Arab Emirates. Set against the backdrop of the urgent need for a rapid transition towards sustainability, COP28, convening in Dubai on November 30, navigates the delicate balance between economic transformation and sustainable development.
We are looking forward to participating in COP28 at our highest level. Honorable Prime Minister will himself be here. And I would say the world is looking forward to his participation, because every time he participates, he shares his vision, which the world takes very seriously. Right since the Paris Agreement was signed, we have shown the world that we have walked our talk when it comes to climate change. We have taken the lead.
As the holder of the COP presidency, the UAE shoulders the responsibility of steering discussions towards critical agreements. Key tasks include securing commitments on the global stocktake of climate action, building consensus on the global goal on adaptation, and establishing the Loss and Damage Fund.
Following the G20 announcement, where climate has been really put high up in the agenda, I think India is going to put all its weight behind to make this happen. And I think funding constraints or any other constraints will not really get into the way.
The urgency of the situation looms large, demanding the mobilization of an estimated $4 trillion annually by 2030 to support the clean energy transition. Achieving a net zero goal by mid-century requires collaboration on an even grander scale. The recent participation of the UAE in the G20 summit in Delhi adds a layer of influence, with global emission reduction targets echoing in the corridors of COP28.
Carbon footprint is all around us in every single metal that we produce or in every single thing that we use. So that way, I think India has seen innovations coming across all three sectors.
The UAE, acknowledging its role as a significant oil producer, contemplates support for carbon capture storage technologies. Amid these challenges, promising initiatives like the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center and the Global Biofuel Alliance emerge, offering glimpses of a cleaner, more sustainable future.
As we approach COP28, the world watches with bated breath. Can UAE, in the heart of an oil-centric landscape, lead the way towards a more sustainable future? The answer lies in the discussion, the debate, and the decision that will unfold in Dubai. The journey to balance energy transition, economic transformation, and sustainable development has never been more critical. With camera person Jaishankar, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Dubai.
President of the United Nations General Assembly, Dennis Francis, at a news conference laid out the messages he will be taking on his forthcoming visit to the United Arab Emirates to take part in COP28 summit. Francis highlighted the urgency of funding arrangements for landlocked and island nations to have a chance at fighting the climate crisis. He also mentioned the importance of keeping the goal of 1.5 degrees for the rise of global temperature. The UNGA president also underlined the need for the international community to demonstrate that it can deliver results.
The messages I will take with me to the COP include: 1. The need to conclude work and operationalize the funds and funding arrangements for loss and damage. 2. The need to support the COP28 presidency's bid to triple renewable energy capacity. This is the only sure way to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and keep 1.5 degrees alive. 3. The need to urgently and dramatically scale up support for adaptation, including delivering on a global goal on adaptation and exponentially driving up finances. And 4, finally, but most importantly, the need for unity and solidarity.
A Hindu temple is coming up soon in Abu Dhabi. It is said to be the first Hindu place of worship in West Asia. Swami Brahma Vihari has said that this temple will strengthen the cultural ties between India and the UAE. He applauded the work of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in strengthening action for climate protection.
It's very appropriate at this time that the mandir, which is going to be opened on 14th February 2024, at the, of course, most deserving and noble hands of our beloved Prime Minister and His Holiness Mahan Swami and the leadership of the UAE. I believe that a culture which has this depth and a leader who has this culture, like our beloved Prime Minister, is very appropriate. He's coming for the opening of COP28 and at a platform where the world is uniting to save the earth. As a part of saving the earth, we need to save human beings as well. That's why this mandir is very appropriate, that it saves the values that keeps us human. Values of love, peace and harmony.
Up next, we're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson to evaluate India-US collaboration mission, NISAR. Indian National Defence Academy marks 75 years. President Draupadi Murmu to participate in celebrations. November 30th marks the 166th birth anniversary of legendary Indian scientist Sir J.C. Bose.
Tamil Nadu is breathtaking, enchanting, divine, come. Revel in the spirit of Tamil Nadu. The Thalaiva of States welcomes to an experience larger than life.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. Let's get you more international updates. NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says that Russia's position in the world is weaker as a result of its invasion of Ukraine. Speaking after a two-day meeting of NATO foreign ministers, Stoltenberg also made it clear that the alliance would continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. DD India's correspondent Alex Kadia reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels. Before we get that detailed report by Alex Kadia, let's get you more on the G20 as official presidency of G20 under India's leadership comes to an end today. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in an editorial article wrote that this moment is to reflect, recommit and rejuvenate the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, that is one earth, one family and one future. He further asserted that India during its presidency sought to offer the world an alternative to status quo a shift from a GDP-centric to human-centric progress. India aimed to remind the world of what unites us rather than what divides us. The Indian Prime Minister also said that after a year of India's presidency, G20 is today more inclusive, ambitious and action-oriented. Prime Minister Modi also lauded the first-of-its-kind Voice of the Global South Summit, convened by India in 2 editions, heralded a new dawn of multilateralism. And Australia's Perth is conducting Austra Hind 2023 from November 22nd to December 6th. The troops from Armed Forces of India and Australia are undergoing tactical exercises in multi-domain operations in urban and semi-urban terrain during the joint military exercise. The Indian Army contingent, comprising of 60 personnel from Gorkha Rifles Battalion, along with 1 officer from the Indian Navy and 20 personnel from the Indian Air Force, will participate. The Australian Army contingent comprises of 60 personnel from the 13th Brigade, including 20 personnel each from the Royal Australian Navy and Royal Australian Air Force. The exercise will help in promoting understanding between the militaries of India and Australia while strengthening defence cooperation between the 2 nations. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson is on a visit to India for a series of meetings with key government officials to deepen space collaboration between India and the US. He will visit the ISRO facility in Bengaluru on Thursday to take a first look at the India-US collaboration mission NISAR, set to be launched by ISRO next year. Among the other missions by both the countries, the US is looking forward to send an Indian astronaut to International Space Station next year.
Bill Nelson and Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma interacted with students at Bangalore. He congratulated India for reaching on the south pole of the moon as the first nation. He said India and US jointly look forward to working on projects in future, and NISAR is a great example of strong US-India partnership. The mission to send an Indian astronaut to International Space Station is underway, and astronauts are undergoing training for that.
Join Rakesh tomorrow. We will both see NISAR together. I'm looking forward to this. There are 2 different radars in different bands. One is built by India, the other is built by the US. They're all a part of this very important climate mission.
Bill Nelson said countries like the US and Russia may share different relations on political front, but they command the International Space Station together, hence space has no boundaries.
Politically, the difficulties between Russia and the US that are going on, but not on the space station. The cosmonauts and the astronauts operate the space station together. We built the space station together.
Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, the only Indian citizen to go to space, also interacted with the students and said astronauts are global citizens and space is a unifying factor. He said ISRO has done immense service in harnessing space technology towards utilizing space science with conscience.
What ISRO has done by harnessing space technology for the socio-economic benefit of our people, we are at a very, very interesting crossroad. This is the very first time that our civilization is stepping out of this cradle and we are returning back to the moon. We are recommencing space exploration with the stated intention of not only exploring but also colonizing first the moon, Mars, and later further away.
Sharing his experience as an astronaut, Bill Nelson, who ventured into space journey, said when he looked at Earth, he could see India and the imposing Himalayan mountains, which was a beautiful view from space, and Himalayas posed as if they are reaching the heavens. Bill inspired students to become astronauts, as India is now a big spacefaring nation with all capabilities to reach for stars. Aisha Khanam for DD India from Bangalore.
The first and the only Indian astronaut to venture into space holds a place of pride in India's history. Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, who is also part of the National Advisory Council on Gaganyaan, says Indian Space Agency ISRO is working, keeping in view the challenges before it. Also, Wing Commander Sharma says that the human interface in Gaganyaan project makes it a challenging one, but he is confident that ISRO will succeed in this. He also says that from space, we see no national boundaries and astronauts return as global citizens. He also was interacting with students in Bengaluru along with NASA Administrator Bill Nelson.
I'm with the two stars, the luminaries who have achieved a lot in the space, and here they are talking to Doordarshan. Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, the only Indian citizen to be in the space, and Bill Nelson, the administrator of NASA, and space journey that we're talking about. We're looking forward to many things. Sir, we are meeting you after a long time. You're not in public life, but there is so much changing. You said Sare Jahan se acha from your journey, space journey. So now when you stand here, what do you see space changing as in India?
Well, I think everybody knows the advances which ISRO has made from a sounding rocket, which we know, which has also, with the help of the US, where sodium vapor was released.
Yes.
And now today we've landed on the south pole of the moon.
Yes.
And now we are talking of the Artemis program.
Yes.
So much has changed, yet so much more needs to be done. And as I had mentioned in my remarks,
yes.
What really recommends itself is really collaboration, because what now needs to be done really cannot be done by any, or should not be done by any one nation.
Right. Now Gaganyaan is now going to be launched soon. So how do you look at this the achievement that India has made so far in the space journey?
Well, I think even Gaganyaan is the next step, because as I had already mentioned, that ISRO has focused up till now on applications technology, and this is the next step.
Right.
So it's the next logical step.
Voting has begun for the 119 seats in southern state of Telangana for regional elections. Over 2,200 candidates in fray are there for 119 seats. The polling exercise will come to an end by 5 p.m. IST. Elaborate security arrangements have been made for polling. Deployment of central forces has been done at over 12,000 sensitive polling station areas. Besides model polling station areas, the election authorities have set up fully women-operated and fully specially abled operated polling stations with a determination to increase the turnout for polling, especially in Hyderabad district. And up next, we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across India. President Draupadi Murmu will review the passing out parade of the 145th batch of National Defence Academy at Khadakwasla in Pune on Thursday. The President will also release a special postage stamp and a coin on the occasion of 75 years of the Academy. She will also lay the foundation stone of the upcoming building of the 5th Battalion. The Indian government has called an all-party meeting on 2nd of December to ensure smooth functioning of both the houses ahead of the winter session of Parliament beginning from 4th of December. The session will conclude on 22nd of December and will have 15 sittings. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra on 30th November at 11 a.m. via video conferencing. In a key step towards women-led development, Prime Minister will also launch Pradhan Mantri Mahila Kisan Drone Kendra, where 15,000 drones will be provided to women SHGs over the next 3 years. Prime Minister will later dedicate landmark 10,000 Jan Aushadhi Kendra at AIIMS Deoghar. A short break ahead, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Crucial OPEC meeting in Vienna, oil output cuts to feature. US President Joe Biden hails job creation and mocks Lauren Boebert. Addressing the recent surge in flu cases in the country, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi reassures countrymen that the situation is under control.
just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. After the break, you're watching DD India News Hour. A quick recap of the top stories once again. 16 more hostages freed from Gaza as part of Israeli-Hamas truce. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Israel for talks on truce and aid shipments. UN Climate Change Conference COP28 opens today in Dubai with a resounding call to accelerate global climate action. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend the summit. Climate priorities to dominate the agenda. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says G20 is today more inclusive, ambitious and action-oriented as India hands over the G20 presidency to Brazil. India's southern state of Telangana goes to assembly polls today. 32.6 million to decide the fate of 2,290 candidates for 119 seats. And in sports, Manchester United on the brink of Champions League exit. Arsenal and PSV into last 16. Real Madrid thrashed Napoli 4-2. Let's get to updates on Russia-Ukraine war now. Russia's defense ministry said that its forces had taken control of a village in eastern Ukraine's war-torn Donetsk region on Wednesday. The ministry released a video to show the fighting in the area. Kromov, which Russia calls Artimovosko, is on the western outskirts of Bakhmut. The village had a pre-war population of 1,000 people. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says that Russia's position in the world is weaker as a result of its invasion of Ukraine. Speaking after a two-day meeting of NATO foreign ministers, Stoltenberg also made it clear that the alliance would continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. DD India correspondent Alec Kadia reports from NATO headquarters in Brussels.
NATO allies have gone to great lengths to show they will continue to stand by Ukraine in the face of Russia's invasion, and that any rumors of Ukraine fatigue are not to be believed. Beyond those rumors, more than $100 billion of aid from the US and the European Union are still being held back by Republicans in Washington and by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Brussels. But NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that new pledges from Germany and the Netherlands, worth more than $10 billion, are clear signs of the West's continued support. While Ukraine's highly anticipated counter-offensive has not led to great gains on the battlefield, Stoltenberg said that the war has weakened Russia's position globally.
Russia is losing influence in its near abroad, not only in Ukraine, but in Caucasus and Central Asia. Russia is also becoming much more dependent on China. Year by year, Moscow is mortgaging its future to Beijing.
Another worry for Ukrainian officials was that the crisis in the Middle East could distract NATO allies, putting their support at risk. For now, at least, Jens Stoltenberg, the United States and other alliance members insist they will continue to stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes. Alex Kadia at NATO headquarters in Brussels reporting for DD India.
The OPEC Plus ministerial meeting scheduled to discuss oil output cuts faced a surprise delay due to disagreements among the producers. Saudi Arabia and Russia remained committed to reducing output, but Nigeria and Angola showed less enthusiasm. As OPEC members gathered in Vienna, predicting future oil prices and output levels proved to be a challenging task, with no agreement reached on the 2024 output levels. Reporting from Berlin, DD India's correspondent Trent Murray gets us this latest update.
Well, OPEC Plus members go into this meeting in Vienna at a time when prices are down from their September highs, weighed down by concerns about economic downturns in parts of the world and also of excess supply. On that question of excess supply, two of the biggest members, Saudi Arabia and Russia, have already committed to reduce output by around 5 million barrels per day. That equates to around 5% of global demand annually. Bharati, but we know there is disagreement within the group, namely from African countries. Nigeria and Angola are less keen, we understand, to reduce their output. They believe that there could be a pickup of demand going into next year, and that is why we do expect these discussions to be quite robust between members. Of course, predicting the price of oil and output levels is always a very difficult task, but that is what is the task ahead for those OPEC members going into those Vienna talks. These original discussions were actually meant for earlier this week, but they had been delayed, which is a real signal that there has not been agreement reached between all of those members. But eventually, when we do get an answer of what the 2024 output levels will be, it will give a very good indication around what the world's leading oil producers think about the year that is ahead. Trent Murray for DD India, Berlin.
U.S. President Joe Biden singled out Republican lawmaker Lauren Boebert on Wednesday as he touts his economic and clean energy policies in Colorado. Biden visited a wind tower manufacturer in Pueblo, a part of Boebert's congressional district, to celebrate investments and job creation around the state. The second-term Congresswoman is facing a tough re-election battle against Democrat Adam Fish, who has outraised her. Biden, who is running for re-election next year, has presided over a stronger-than-expected U.S. economy and big federal investments in infrastructure and clean energy. But the clean energy industry is now struggling with high costs.
Historic investments we're celebrating today is in Congressman Boebert's district. She's one of the leaders of this extreme mega movement. She, along with every single Republican colleague, voted against the law that made these investments in jobs possible. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And then she voted to repeal key parts of this law. And she called this law a massive failure. You all know you're part of a massive failure? Tell that to the 850 Coloradans that get new jobs in Pueblo and see us win thanks to this law.
Nikki Haley, a contender for the U.S. Republican presidential nomination, is steadily garnering backing and surpassing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in certain states. However, all candidates remain significantly trailing former President Donald Trump in spite of numerous legal battles. Reporting from Washington, DD India's correspondent Caroline Malone gets us this update.
This week, Nikki Haley's campaign made critical progress in moving towards a bid to represent the Republican Party in an election for the White House by getting the endorsement of super PAC Americans for Prosperity. They're a conservative political network led by billionaire Charles Koch, with deep pockets and a network of staffers who can promote Haley to potential voters. The former US ambassador to the UN has done well in debates, helping her gradually gain support, to the point where she's now ahead of Florida Governor DeSantis in New Hampshire and in line with him in Iowa, two of the first states where the party will vote for their candidate in January. However, all candidates are still 50 points nationally behind frontrunner former President Trump, even though he has a series of federal court cases to appear in early next year. Political analysts see Haley's best chance is to face Trump without other rivals. She'll have a chance to gain people's support again next week at the fourth Republican debate that happens without Trump, but will be featuring DeSantis. Caroline Malone in Washington for DD India.
A U.S. military aircraft crashed near an island in western Japan on Wednesday with 6 people on board. Japan's Coast Guard found grey-colored debris reportedly from the aircraft and confirmed that 1 crew member had been killed and the condition of others was unclear. The crash happened at around 2:47 p.m. local time near the Yakushima Island, and U.S. forces in the region are gathering more information. DD India's Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo on this.
Just over 6 hours ago, when it suddenly requested an emergency landing at that island you mentioned, Yakushima. There's an airport there, and then fishers in the area just 5 minutes later reported, these are witness reports, that it turned 180 degrees, flipped on its back, and consistent reports from witnesses that the left engine was on fire before crashing into the ocean. Local fishers in the area on their boats immediately responded. As you mentioned, 3 people have been recovered. 1 has passed away in hospital. But that does leave 3 people still unaccounted for on this chilly winter's night here in Japan. It was a clear day. The winds were low. There were no weather advisories in effect at the time. But the CV-22 Osprey, the aircraft that it was, does have a somewhat troubled history. In 2010, one crash landed in Afghanistan, killing 4 people. A couple have crashed in Australia in 2017, and earlier this year, killing 3 people each time. There have been accidents in training as well, but it's certainly a very tragic accident for the U.S. military here in Japan.
Former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger died on Wednesday at the age of 100. Kissinger had a hand in many of the epoch-changing global events of the decade while serving as Secretary of State under Republican President Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford. The German-born Jewish refugees' efforts led to the diplomatic opening of China, landmarks U.S.-Soviet arms control talks, expanded ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors, and the Paris Peace Accord with North Vietnam. Kissinger died at his home in Connecticut. Supporters of former Peruvian President Alberto Fujimori showed their support for the ex-leader outside a prison. The demonstration comes after Peru's constitutional court restored the pardon of Fujimori the same day. Keiko Fujimori, politician and daughter of the ex-president, told the press that it was not time to judge whether the former leader was guilty or innocent, but to respect the top court's decision. Fujimori, who was convicted of human rights abuses and corruption, had been pardoned for the crimes, though the pardon was annulled last year. Argentina's Legislative Assembly proclaimed the presidential formula of Javier Milei and Victoria Villarreal as president and vice president-elect following their election victory 2 weeks ago. The session was led by the president of the Senate and outgoing vice president of the country, Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner, as deputies and senators ratified the election result of November 19th. According to the Argentine law, the elected president and vice president must be accredited by the country's legislative assembly before being sworn in. Right-wing Milei, who takes office on December 10th, faces a huge challenge to tame price rise, bring down poverty, and navigate complex geopolitical and trade ties with China and Brazil. 4 migrants died after falling from a speedboat at a beach in Cadiz in southern Spain. The boat was carrying a total of 27 immigrants, 23 survived. Video footage showed a speedboat sailing near Camposoto Beach in the town of Chiclana, while police officers and Red Cross members watched. Another 8 adult male migrants were left on the shore of Sancti Petri Beach near Chiclana and were attended by medical personnel and the Guardia Civil Police. 3 of the group were later taken to hospital with hypothermia. In a bid to ease public concerns, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has addressed the recent surge in the flu cases in China. Wang Yi reassured both the domestic population and the international community that the situation is under effective control. The World Health Organization last week requested China to provide detailed information on an increase in respiratory illnesses and reported clusters of pneumonia in children. But a WHO official said that the spike in illnesses in China is not as high as before the COVID-19 pandemic and reiterated that the new or unusual pathogens had been found in recent cases. Up next, we take a look at other stories making it to the headlines from across the world. Guinea's world record holder for the largest gingerbread village, John Lovitch, has created Gingerbread Village display of 800 handmade and home-baked houses in Manhattan's Chelsea Market. Gingerbread Lane is open to the public until January 7th, after which Lovitch will dismantle the exhibit and give away the gingerbread houses for free. Macau's Rui Kanha Foundation opened its annual art exhibition on Wednesday to showcase artwork of over 30 participants. The theme of this year's showcase is People First, aiming to raise awareness about the drug addicts and to end the stigma and discrimination association with drug use. The exhibition will be open till December 2nd. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour, India's role in Walmart's supply chain grows. China faces competition from India. Sri Lanka reaches agreement with India and Paris Club on debt treatment. Stay with us to know the preferred hosts for 2030 and 2034 Winter Olympics picked by International Olympic Committee.
India that invents. India that innovates. India that excites. India that invites. Land of possibility. Teeming with opportunities. Watch India Ideas each Thursday, 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development predicts global GDP growth of 2.9% this year, followed by a slight decrease to 2.7% in 2024. Reporting from Paris, DD India correspondent Ross Cullen gets us this latest outlook.
Global growth is set to remain modest for the rest of the year, according to the OECD, with the overall forecast for 2023 being just shy of 3%. And despite the slowdown it projects next year, the body predicts a slight improvement to 3% in 2025. The Paris-based organisation says growth is being impacted by monetary policy tightening, weak trade, and lower business and consumer confidence. But while markets in Europe and North America continue to struggle, Asia is expected to continue to account for the bulk of global growth in 2024 and 2025, as it has this year. Of the G20 countries, India leads the way with growth set for next year of 6.1%, and then there is a forecast improvement to 6.5% in 2025. The economies of France, Italy, Germany and the United Kingdom are all projected to grow very slowly next year and only just pass 1% in 2025. The OECD's outlook highlights a range of risks, including geopolitical tensions surrounding the war in Ukraine and now the evolving conflict following the Hamas attacks on Israel. On a more positive note, the OECD says stronger consumer spending could push up growth if households make greater use of savings accumulated since the COVID-19 pandemic. In Paris, Ross Cullen reporting for DD India.
Move over China. According to a new Reuters report, India is playing an increasingly important role in Walmart's supply chain. The world's largest retailer is importing more goods from the country, ranging from toys, electronics to pharmaceuticals to food. DD India's correspondent Tony Waterman explains us why.
According to this Reuters report, 25% of the items Walmart shipped to the U.S. between January and August of this year came from India, which is a massive jump from just 2% 5 years ago. And the sharp climb in imports from India appears to coincide with a decrease in Walmart's imports to the U.S. from China, which fell by a near equal amount during the same period. There are a few factors at play here. For one, it's become a lot more expensive for U.S.-based companies to import goods from China ever since the Trump administration slapped tariffs on more than $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. So companies like Walmart are looking for cheaper alternatives. Another reason is mounting political tensions between Beijing and Washington. Uncertainty is never good for business, and diversification of supply chains can help shield companies from future fallout, including from unpredictable snags like global pandemics. But there is also a broader strategic element at play. In recent years, Walmart has been making India a bigger part of its manufacturing base. In 2018, it bought a majority stake in the e-commerce giant Flipkart, and then just 2 years later, it pledged to import $10 billion worth of goods from India each year come 2027. And a top executive for Reuters said that the company was on track to meet that goal. Walmart also told Reuters that India's growing workforce and technological advancement has been a major draw for the company, especially as the population shrinks and ages in China. And Walmart now employs more than 100,000 workers across India. That being said, China remains Walmart's largest import market, at least for now. In Austin, Tony Waterman reporting for DD India.
The United Auto Workers Union says that it is launching a campaign to publicly organize 13 non-unionized automakers in the U.S. after winning new contracts with the Detroit 3 automakers. The Detroit-based UAW said that workers at 13 non-union automakers were announcing simultaneous campaigns across the country to join the union, including at Tesla, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. Those automakers employ nearly 150,000 workers at their U.S. assembly plants. The union said that if 30% of workers at a non-union plant sign cards seeking to join, it would make that public. The push comes as several foreign automakers have announced significant pay and other compensation improvements in response to the UAW contracts in a move to keep the UAW out of their plants. Sri Lanka has reached an agreement with the Official Creditor Committee, that is OCC, led by India, France and Japan. The agreement will help the crisis-hit island nation to tap the next tranche of International Monetary Fund's nearly $3 billion recovery package. The Sri Lankan government last month said that it had reached an agreement with the Exim Bank of China on key terms and principles for restructuring its debt worth $4.2 billion. Sri Lanka's external debt to bilateral creditors currently exceeds $9 billion, with China's share alone accounting for over $4 billion. Last year, the island nation of 22 million had defaulted on its external debt commitments for the first time in its worst ever economic crisis since its independence. The Official Creditor Committee, which comprises of India and several members of the Paris Club, have been meeting regularly to formulate the debt restructuring plan. However, China had not joined the common platform actively and had remained an observer. Critics pointed fingers at flawed economic policies and criticized white elephant projects executed by China, including the Hambantota port and Matala airport, attributing them to the crisis. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to updates from the world of sports now. In football, Manchester United are facing elimination from the Champions League in the group stage as they draw 3 each with Galatasaray in Istanbul on Wednesday. United have now conceded 14 goals in 5 European matches, and this result leaves the Premier League side bottom of Group A with 1 game remaining. In order to go through, they must now beat Bayern at home next month and hope that Copenhagen and Galatasaray draw. On the other hand, Arsenal's form in Europe in this season has been in stark contrast to that of United, and the Gunners romped into the last 16 with a 6-0 demolition of Lens in London. Arsenal have scored 12 goals without reply in winning their 3 home matches in Group B and have now wrapped up top spot ahead of PSV, who are also through. Real Madrid were already through to the last 16 before hosting Napoli, and they clinched top spot in Group C with a 4-2 victory at Santiago Bernabeu. International Olympic Committee on Wednesday picked preferred hosts for 2030 and 2034 Winter Olympics. Bid leaders will have detailed talks with the IOC, chalking out plans and state support with the Olympic governing body to decide on the 2030 and 2034 hosts at its session in July 2024. The French bid scored points for its plan to hold the Games in 4 separate clusters, as well as for its strong support from the private and public sector. Salt Lake City had initially wanted to bid for the 2030 Games, but later changed its bid. Its current plan relies on existing venues only, with no significant capital investment. November 30th marks the 166th birth anniversary of Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose, whose brilliance left an everlasting impression on the world of science. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us at in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.